Welcome to the Jamodi podcast, where we interview coaches and leaders to find out not just what they do, but how they do what they do. Becoming the best version of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. I know with all the other things that you teach, with the defensive side and with read and react, you also teach shooting. So I think that's probably a subject we could spend 2 hours on.
Oh, but easily. It is my, you can, once you get talking, you can tell it's one of my favorites. It's where I kind of begin to cut my teeth in private training.
Yeah.
I got a reputation in Atlanta that I could teach shooting. So
if you're walking to a gym and you have a kid that you really haven't spent a lot of time with, I think for high school coaches, sometimes we get I have 20 to 30 kids in a gym by myself for 43 minutes, and we do some shooting things, but I can really only look at a few major pieces to give them that, or else I could spend the whole 43 minutes with one kid and miss everybody else. So what are some of those keys that you teach when you're shooting?
Such a good question. Such a really good question. In fact, I was at Michigan State, last week or a week before, can't remember now, and for 3 days, 4 days. And I just couldn't resist, at the end of practice, when they were through, everyone was stepping off. There was one kid shooting, and I said, do you mind if I'm not supposed to be talking to anybody, during practice, but I said, can I just ask this kid to do a couple things? Okay. And the two things that I asked are the two things that I'm going to, and I'm going to tell you, these are the answers. Okay. First of all, there's a misconception that our arms provide the power to get the ball to the goal. And so what I told this player was, and by the way, this is where I start with anybody, is your core, which is from your feet, up to your shoulders, the whole thing there. Your core is going to provide the power to get the ball to the goal. I want your arms and hands free to simply guide the ball. So now how are we going to do that? That sounds great. How are you going to do that? Here's how. Time the breaking of your wrist with your feet leaving the ground. Those two happen at the same time, or roughly the same time.
Yeah.
Now, with more advanced players, and stronger players as you develop them, that timing will be a lot like Steph Curry. When I freeze frame, record and freeze frame Steph Curry, now you know what I do with all my time. and I freeze frame him when his wrist breaks. Now I'm talking about he's shooting the 30-footer, right? Mm-hmm. The 35-foot Steph Curry shot, right? Like, oh my gosh, you're taking this, right? When his wrist breaks, so the ball is only, 12 inches from it. As soon as his wrist breaks, his feet, Matt, his toes are about this far off of the ground.
Wow.
Not very far. Not very far. Okay. So when you begin developing, you just now, how do you help them do that? Stand beside them and watch their feet and just give a little clap when their feet leave the ground. And that way they can watch their shot and they can see if their wrist breaks with this sound. Can I do these two together? And suddenly you'll find that they've got plenty of power to get to the goal. I've done this with 7th grade girls that I've privately trained and turned them over the course of time into very good three-point shooters that have no problem getting the ball to the goal. That's not the problem. I never start out there. I start in closer, but the process is time the breaking of your wrist with your feet leaving the ground. You want to ride the power wave from your feet up through here that's running through your body. It's like surfing. You want the ball to be right on the edge of this, okay? By the way, let me throw this in too. Whoever's teaching women, girls, females to set the ball up here near their shoulders, would you please stop if you're hearing this? You're killing so many kids from being good shooters. I got one question. Yeah, I got one question. Do we do that with guys? We don't. Yeah. Guys set this thing right about where their numbers are on their jersey or their navel, somewhere's right in here, and that allows ball momentum. It takes a very strong person to start it right here and jump and shoot. I mean, it's like, dude, that's for pros. Why are you killing women, girls, and get them to, okay, anyway, sorry. Get off that soapbox. All right. The second thing that I would do, and this covers a multitude of sins, Matt, is what I call frame the goal with your follow through. Now, what I mean by that, and you can see me and people listening to podcasts cannot, but everyone listening knows what a high follow through and extended follow through is, right? Okay. Like this shooting hand, the wrist is broken, right? And Matt, the way I'm looking at you on this podcast, my shooting fingers, I'm raising them to the top of the screen, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Actually, my shooting fingers, when I'm shooting from the 3-point line, and when you're shooting from 3-point line, is probably about this visually. I mean, actually, it's probably 2 feet above the backboard, the top of the backboard. Okay. Just go check it out. Now, with smaller kids, with younger kids, it's like the top of the backboard. Okay. But now, here's the biggie. I want the left hand, the other hand, the guide hand, the non-shooting hand, to be extended as well. And do you see how in the video I have my hand is framing my head?
Yeah, I see that. Yep.
I want them to frame the goal with the think of a big window frame that you're sticking the rim in right in the middle. On the top of that window frame is the shooting fingers, okay? And that, of course, should be pointed directly down in the goal, just like my shooting fingers right down the middle of my head, right?
Yep.
And the other one is also fully extended. Here you go. I'll hold them down where you can see. So I've got full relaxed extension by both arms. Matt, what this does is it keeps a player from twisting and torquing and turning. If you hold a one-handed follow through, you'll turn like that. You'll twist. And that's why you see a lot of players follow through like this. Can you see my hand?
Yep.
Like they'll
pointing off to the right.
Yep. Off to the right. That's because their brain is trying to correct a torque, a vector that when you do this and it sends the ball, for me, I'm shooting right-handed, so it sends the ball to my left. Well, right at the last moment, I've got to kind of correct it and send the ball back to try and keep it straight down the middle. That is not a way to have a trustworthy shot. So if you want to stay square, relatively square to the goal, and cut out some of, if not all of the twist of shooting, with one hand, keep both hands extended and frame the goal. So sometimes, and the reason I say frame the goal is because players have got to become their own best shot doctor.
Right.
So they've got to know, not you. You can't be there with every one of their shots, but they can. So if they know what to look for, look, I don't care if you're fading, if your feet are facing this way and you shoot, look, you can always catch the goal in your frame. And I would just dare anybody to take really good shooters. Okay. Clay, right? Last name went right out of my.
Yeah, I mean, I could think Clay, Reddick. So many great shooters. They probably have that same follow through in common.
Well, now you know why I chose. I did everything I could, and luckily got J.J. Reddick right out of college to demonstrate on my shooting video. It's not because I trained Reddick. I didn't. Okay, it's silly.
You don't claim credit for JJ
No,
Rexy?
can't take any credit for that long NBA career and
Yeah.
everything that he did. You know, dadgummit, he should send me some of that big contract. You know,
It's all you, man. That's what. Yeah. I got two questions. So
like I'm responsible. No,
Yeah.
it's because he shot the way I teach. Go ahead.
The first one, I would imagine. So I like the fact that you have those two things, and it doesn't really mess because there's so much. I mean, you get so deep in the mud with how they're holding it and how they're lining up, but you take those two things with speeding up their release. I would imagine, like if a kid has a weird hitch, if he has a pause, if it's not smooth coming up through, that's speeding it up. He's either not going to be able to do it. Yep. He's not going to be able to get that flick of his wrist to go with his feet coming off. But then when he starts to make the adjustment, it'll magically start to correct some things.
You nailed it. And I haven't even, that's a conclusion I would expect you to come to, Matt, if you got out and did it with some players. I can't believe you. Wow. You're exactly right. I do that because it's like it self-corrects so many things, you know.
Yeah, you can't do it fast if you have so many almost impurities, something with your shot. So many inconsistencies. And
it's really hard to kind of shoot like this.
Yeah, can't do it. Yeah.
when you got to finish with it.
That's right. The second one with the frame, just so that I can see it right. You've got your finger. If I'm right hand shooting, my fingers. If I'm looking up at the goal, where should my tips be? Right above the backboard or right above? Okay, so backboard. Yes. So almost parallel with the ends of my fingertips with the top of the backboard. Guide hand, side of the backboard or the actual rim? Because when you say goal, just want to make sure I got it.
No, side of the rim.
Okay, so side of the rim for my guide hand, top of the backboard for my shooting hand.
Yep.
I love that.
Yeah, rough. Again, that's rough, you know. Now, what I'll do is I'll stand behind the player, or if you're in a gym with a bunch of shooters, I just wander around and I get behind them, you know, and I can see through their frame, and I'll make little corrections there. Hey, you know, go ahead and extend the left hand a little further, maybe above the goal, but on the side of the goal, you know, still, you know, they might be catching, Matt, this, you know, there's my guide hand, right?
Yep.
They might be catching the rim with their wrist between, you know, it may be above. So if my head was the rim, it may not be like this. It may be more like this. When you fully extend, if I had something that I could fit between their wrist right here, like a sight, I would adjust it until the rim came between these forearms, wrist, you know, and you could just catch. Now, why? Because that's how they control arc. You said tips of the fingers above the backboard. That's how you're going to control arc. You know, if the tips of your fingers, if you can't see them, the arc is too much, you know, it's going to bring rain, right? If your fingers are below, like for me and you, our size, shooting from the 3-point line, if the tips of our fingers are below the top of the backboard, it's too flat, way too flat. Yep. Now, for kids like junior high, stuff like that, you know, and I'm training them, say, at the free throw line, right in there, you know, to shoot, then tips of their fingers can't go below the little white square. Okay. You'll adjust that.
Yep.
You know?
I think you'll be I'm guessing I'll be able to get a good feel, one, based on the path of the ball for them. Like, I'm not going to keep telling them to have their fingers up at the very top if it's obviously, if it's pushing it short. Right. Yeah. What I love about that, though, so I think I've always felt like high school coaches we need to reclaim being skill coaches for our players. We see them the most. Like, we have a really good feel for where they're at, but we need ideas like that, because I can't take a kid for 30 minutes every day and go through a checklist of 10. But what I can do is walk around in our shooting games. We shoot hundreds of threes every day through different games and trackings and things. I can start to check their frame. And and what I love about it too, Coach, is brilliant, is they can do it themselves. Because if we're only giving them golden nuggets that we have to be there in order for them to continue it, then I got to stand there the whole time.
That's right. There's only one of you.
That's great.
And I've always told them, look, my goal, the reason I'm telling you why on all this is my goal is to turn you into your own best shot doctor. You got to know why it goes in. You got to know why it misses right, why it misses left, why you're short, why you're long. You got to know, and you got to know the corrections, you know. So short and long, by the way, you've just described it, you know. Where do the tips of this shooting finger finish? Is it too high, too low? That's how you make your adjustments. What about left and right? This is the frame. It's usually the non-shooting hand. You got to get it up there, and you got to catch the rim between your wrists. You know, there's like taking a picture.
Yep.
And that'll usually correct left and right, you know.
Coach, I appreciate you sharing those two things, because again, just like the shooting game is going to help us with training. I'm already in my mind thinking of a few guys that. Oh, one question I had with the frame: how long do they hold it?
Oh, excellent! So I'm so glad you didn't go on. I hold it until the ball hits rim or net. And by the way, that gives them time to make corrections. I'm going to give you a nugget, okay? And this comes from a good 20 years of private training, okay? When I was coaching, I was also doing private training. And here's what I found from experience. What they do after the shot, the corrections that they make to their form after the shot transfers. That's how you correct it, because you can't correct it while they're shooting. The shot, it's all too fast. It's all right.
Oh, it's already out. It's already
right. and you know, I used to find myself saying stuff like, okay, now for the next 10 shots, I want you to make sure that your feet are square and that the ball is set and that your wrist is broken. And it's like, oh, already, yeah, their minds are about to explode, right? And so after the shot, they help. First of all, that allows me to see what they're doing. So, Coach, you can see me, right? So at the end of my shot, I'm like this, right? Okay, and I'll go, hey, you got to frame the goal. And they'll turn, they'll square up, they'll frame it, and I'm not going to let them go. I'm not going to say good. When I say good, or their shooting partner says good, that's when they can drop their hands. Now that's for those that are. Now, hey, I got to tell you this. There was a kid. This was the first year we made it to the Final Four, and I had this kid who, as a freshman, he was the valedictorian of the school. This is a very smart player, okay, and he was a good athlete. As a freshman, this was his follow-through. Coach, he looked over his right elbow,
the shooting elbow,
the shot. Right? And I used to say, "Hey, are you shooting over there, like 45 degrees over there? Because where your hands finish is where the ball's going to go. You can't get past that, you know." And I said, so you're doing all kinds of things with your body to finish over here and let the ball go that way. So, by the way, none of that works. See, so I told his shooting partner in practice for 3 years, okay, because the one I'm going to tell you about is his junior year. For 3 years, I told him, look, you don't throw the ball back to him in our shooting, any of our shooting, until he's done this. Until he has brought his bad follow-through up and framed the goal and squared up, then he can drop his hands, then you can throw him the ball. Okay, oh my goodness, it made him so mad, I can't believe I'm having to do this and no one else has. Now let me fast forward. His junior year, no, I take that back. I think it was his senior year was our first trip to the Final Four. He was our leading 3-point shooter on the team. He had a classic shot by then.
Nice.
I mean, and his confidence was, well, the whole team's confidence. If his name was Eric, if Eric's going to shoot, man, it's going in.
There's a great reminder in that story too, is that none of these tips and tricks and things that we're telling our players are going to deliver instant results. It's delayed gratification. And it's so much as we're talking about, these days with coaching and teams is embracing the process. Yep. Shooting is one of the biggest arenas where it's got to be process based, and you have to stick with these great principles, believing that over time it'll end up being good for you.
Yeah, you're going to have to sell them on the process.
Coach, I wish we had if we had another hour, we could keep going with shooting.
Absolutely, we can do it again and do it.
This is part one. Can we? You'll be my first coach that I've ever already set up part two.
I'm in. I'm in. I'll sign the contract right now.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.